Ladies and gentlemen, aspiring and current property investors, hello, hello, hello. I hope you are doing amazing. This is Soleni Mtisi, one of the co founders of Zare Training Academy. And as promised, I have another wonderful property expert for you today. Remember the goal, hey, before I introduce this amazing lady. Remember the goal, all these amazing people we are bringing in here, they are for you to make sure that you have all the support necessary when it comes to your property investing journey. And most importantly, you are doing everything right to save on that money and to avoid a whole lot of mistakes. Hey. So without taking too much of your time, I would like to quickly introduce to you to our amazing property expert today. We have Marisia or Marisha. Okay, please help me. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing her name right. People normally butcher my name, and it can be a bit a hell lot of personal. So I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing her name right. It's Marisia. So I am here to introduce her. So this wonderful lady, she is a property inspector, one of the 40 certified property inspectors in South Africa, and I promise you she is the best. So let her introduce herself. Please tell everybody about yourself. Please basically say hi. Hey.
Thank you, Sweleni. Thank you very much for having me this afternoon. It's a great privilege. As you said, my name is Marisia Robus. I'm a NABISA certified master inspector, which is the National Association of Building Inspectors of South Africa. I'm also an ITC certified roof inspector, which is the Institute for Timber Construction, and then I'm an asbestos inspector. I'm the only female property, roof, and asbestos inspector in the country. And I believe that I deliver the best product possible to my clients when they employ me.
Perfect. So the first obvious question, I'm trying to capture everybody's attention because somebody probably is passing, passing and they're seeing this live and they're wondering, okay, so should I stay here and listen? Is this for me? And whatever. So, like, who do you normally help? You are a property inspector. I think the obvious one is the fact that you work with property investors. So obviously, if anybody is seeing this and they're a property investor, they're supposed to stick around and hear what you have to say. So can you please touch a bit more on that in terms of who are you supporting? Who do you serve as a property inspector?
Okay, so anybody buying any property, so whether it is a flat, whether it is a house, a townhouse, industrial, commercial, multi let, student accommodation, newly built property, you're the lady to make sure that you're not buying a dud and that you know what the defects are before you buy and that you can negotiate a better price after I've done my inspection. So, how it normally works is that people will put an offer in on a property, and in there they will put a clause that makes the offer subject to a property inspection and the outcome thereof being acceptable to them. That means that if I find horrendous things, let's say there is damp that's going to cost you 500,000 Rand to repair, and I find roof problems that's going to be another 300,000, and there's a structural crack, and you just say, no ways, I do not have the capacity or the energy to sort out this property. I want to walk away. That then means that you can walk away without any penalty. You don't have to pay the agent's commission, nothing. You walk away from the deal because what I found in the property was too severe and you don't have the energy for it. Or in the case of a lot of my property investors, they prefer me to do the inspection even before they put the offer in. So if they've run their numbers and they're happy with the numbers and it makes sense, they then say, Marisha, go and do the inspection. They then take my report and they look at everything and they say, it's going to cost me X amount to do all of these, the urgent things. And they then submit their offer with my report. And the beauty of doing it that way is that when you provide my report to the seller and the agent, they are legally obliged to inform all future buyers of all of those defects. And I always tell my property investors, when you submit your offer with my report, and normally they submit a lowball offer, you say to the agent and the seller, by law, you are now obliged to inform all future buyers of all of these defects that are in this report, and you won't get a better offer than mine. So then they either negotiate or they walk away from the deal as well. I have found horrendous things in buildings, and I have saved people a lot of money. One of my property investors last year, the end of last year, wanted to buy student accommodation in Sunnyside in Pretoria. They asked me to do the inspection, and the nice thing that they thought was the seller said, I've submitted all the building plans, we did alterations, the neighbors have signed, they're happy that we've built onto the boundary wall, and we're just waiting for the council to approve. So that is wonderful because a lot of times people have done alterations and they haven't submitted building plans. But the moment I walked into these rooms they built on the back of the property, I said, there's a problem here. There were three bathrooms and none of them had natural ventilation. In
Yikes.
other words, windows that open to the outside. Now, if you don't have windows that open to the outside, you can put mechanical ventilation, an extractor fan in. That wasn't done. You had the one kitchen's window opening up into another kitchen's window. And there were about 15 things in that outbuilding alone that were not done according to building regulations. When I asked for the building plans and I looked at it, what was built and what was put on the building plans were chalk and cheese. Because on the building plans, it was all done legally. There was supposed to be an alley around the building where the sewage pipes and the windows and everything was going to be, and that alley wasn't there. The
So
one
basic.
toilet
Mm.
sewage pipe was in the next door toilet.
So
That's not
basically,
allowed.
so basically, people are cutting costs. Hey, they
They are
submit these building
cutting
plans and
corners.
then they do something completely different, trying to cut costs.
Yes, but I don't know in this case whether the architect even came out to the property to see what was built because he didn't draw up the plans according to that, or whether the architect had drawn up
Mm.
the plans and the homeowner just decided, I'm not going to build it like that, I'm going to build it the way I want to build it. So that is a big problem. And it's important as an investor. And I find the most problems on multi lets and on student accommodation because people turn every room into the lounge, the dining room, they
Mm.
subdivide them, they turn them into bedrooms, and then they don't provide enough windows. I find that in student accommodation as well. They will make this funny little room in the middle of the house, and there's no window, there's no ventilation, and that is a health risk and it is illegal.
So, what would you suggest? This is fascinating to me, I have to say, because I'm a sourcing specialist. I normally find investment opportunities for investors, and all this you're talking about, it's fascinating. Like, it's bringing back a whole lot of pictures in my head of a bunch of properties which I've seen, like scary properties, and this is just amazing. I have one question though. Do you suggest property investors talk to you first before signing an OTP, or after signing an OTP? Which one is best in your experience?
Okay, that depends. If let's say, for instance, the property is on the market for 2 million rand, and as an investor, you've walked through there and you've seen there's a lot of work to be done, and you think, I think 1.2, 1.3 million is a better price. The first thing the agent says to you is, no, the seller will never accept an offer that low. Then what you can do is you can get me to do the inspection first. And then you go back with my report and you say, hey, look at all these serious items. I now believe the property is worth 1.2 million. Or if you believe the price is not too bad and you offer 1.8, 1.7, they accept it, then let me do an offer afterwards. But make sure that you put the clause in that says the offer is subject to a full property inspection and the outcome thereof being acceptable to you. The other thing you must always ask for and put it in the OTP is approved building plans.
Mm.
Because the problem is that a lot of people don't have approved building plans, especially if they've done additions and alterations. And they use the excuse, especially if it's Pretoria, but I heard it in the Ekurhuleni now as well. No, but the council had a fire and my plans were lost in the fire. So
Yeah.
that's an easy way out. Now, the reason I say make your offer subject to the seller providing approved building plans is, let's say you don't put that clause in. The bank comes and they do a valuation and they see, hey, there's been alterations and additions here. They then want approved building plans. And if your bank says, condition of me providing you finance is that you must provide approved building plans, you have to pay to have the building plans approved. Whereas if you make it a condition of in the OTP, the seller must pay for it. And to draw building plans up in itself is not that expensive. Depending
Mm.
on how many alterations were done, it can cost you between 10 and 20,000 Rand. Submission fees to the council is not very high, but because you've added on, you must get an occupancy certificate. Now, in order for the council to issue an occupancy certificate, you need a long list of certificates to be provided. Engineer certificates for the foundations, the first floor slab, the roof, glazing, plumbing, electrical. Now, all of those are expensive because an engineer has to come out now and inspect a building, dig open some of the foundations, and he has to sign off and say that the foundations are okay. And his professional indemnity is now on the line. He did not see when that building was built, so he doesn't really know what concrete they put in there, what steel they put in there. So he's taking a chance by issuing a certificate. Therefore, instead of charging their normal 7 to 8 or 10,000 Rand, they double or sometimes triple that. So your certificates can cost you up to 100,000 Rand.
Oh.
The other problem is to issue a new glazing certificate. The glass has to be up to today's regulations. Now,
Mhm.
in 2010, the glass regulations changed. So now all the glass that is in this property that is not according to the new regulations must be replaced before a glazing certificate can be issued. And the same with the plumbing. Before a plumbing certificate can be issued, everything must be brought up to today's standards, and that can cost money.
So to avoid all of this, just make sure that you stay away from properties without building plans. In
For
summary.
sure, or you make it, you say it's the seller must pay for it, and then it's his problem. Then it's his problem.
I think normally those I've seen some properties where like on property 24 or the agent whoever says cash only. They do not accept that they do not recommend you go through the bank. Normally those properties are the ones where there's just something wrong there.
Yes, those properties normally don't have building plans, or they know that they've done illegal
Mm.
alterations and additions. And they know even when the bank's valuator, who is not a building inspector and he doesn't do quality control, but they know what is right and wrong. And normally they will see, this is not done according to regulations, and they will then decline the bond on
Mm.
that basis.
Mm.
So yes, you're quite correct. If a person says this, says that, know that you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, red
And the
flag.
other thing people must remember is if you buy a property that's relatively newly built, if it was built less than 5 years ago, the bank is going to require the original NHBRC enrollment form. remember when you build a new property, you have to enroll the house with the NHBRC.
Mhm.
And then that certificate, because they guarantee the structure for 5 years for a structure for structural cracks. So therefore, you then require those things as well.
Mm, that's amazing. Now I'm loving this conversation because it's not just about, property inspection only. It's also about like the construction side. And I think I saw on your website that you have extensive experience in terms of construction. You started quite early. You were
That's
basically
right.
you were part of the family business. Can you please tell us a bit more about that?
Okay, so I worked for my father in our construction company for about 12 years.
Mhm.
And the day I started working for him, he took me to site and he said to me, I'm starting to build this house today, and you will come to site every single day. And you will learn every single thing every subcontractor does. And we were on site, and he said to me, the bricklayer is setting the house out skew. I'm like, okay, how do you know that?
Mhm.
And he said, ABC, check for this, check for that. I'm like, okay. Then he said to me, go back home or go back to the office and go and measure how much steel must we order for the foundations and how much concrete must we order for the foundations. So I learned from the ground up. I was on site every day. I was taught how the plasterers must mix the dugger for the plaster work. Why are the bricklayers doing the window openings wrong? And
Mm.
what that has taught me is my dad would say, if they don't do this and this and this in the plaster, you are going to have that and that type of crack. And then later, when we formed our property inspection company, we would go out and do inspections, and my dad would say, you see this crack? The plasterer didn't do ABC, or
Mm.
this crack is
Mm.
because of that. And that is very important when you do property inspections. For instance, there are 15 different types of cracks, and you don't use polyfiller to repair them. And the big thing with the crack is you must first identify the crack, then determine what caused it, and only then can you repair the crack so that it never comes back. Because if you patch a crack, it will come back. If you take a plaster crack and you patch it with polyfiller, within 2, 3 months, it'll crack in the middle of the
Mm.
polyfiller again. So you have to identify what is the problem, what caused it before you can repair it properly. And there is a huge difference between repair and patch.
Mm. And I think that is where I need to emphasize again that as a property investor, do not, I repeat, do not buy a property without having a property inspector like Marisha over here. It is very important because I've noticed that sellers can be very tricky, those people. They are able to hide,
Oh,
things with paint, and just when you arrive, you're like, oh, this property is so nice. You know what? The whole market value and whatnot, it makes sense, and then you buy. Few months down the line, problems start to appear like nobody's business. So I'm sure you have
exactly.
stories of such situations.
When when I arrive at a property and it's newly painted, and I look at the ceilings and the ceilings are painted, I'm like, there's been roof leaks. And then I know that my inspection is going to take at least an hour longer because I now need to find out what are they hiding with this paint.
Mm,
So, yes, I hate it when they've just painted a property because then I know they're hiding something. And you must also remember that even with the current mandatory disclosure forms that sellers must complete, I find that probably 95% of the mandatory disclosure forms are completed wrong
mm,
because the seller says, oh, I didn't know there's damp,
mm,
and then when I'm doing the inspection and I see the damp, I say to them, so how long have you been struggling with the damp? What have you done to repair it? Oh no, it's been for 7 years and we haven't done this, the next thing. Then in my report I say, hey, there's damp. They said there's not damp. And the seller says, I didn't know there was damp. So they cannot hide behind, I didn't know. And it's
mm,
very important that if you suspect anything, make sure that you get an inspection done. But the other thing that I also want to highlight is I said earlier that I'm an NABISA certified master inspector. Now, NABISA is a voluntary association for building inspectors, and we've taken so all the building inspectors in the as built umbrella will come into NABISA. That is your bank inspectors, insurance, NHBRC, all of them will come under NABISA. And we're wanting to regulate the industry. Now, I was part of a task team who spent 2 years developing a building inspector training course that building inspectors will be trained properly. And we're hoping that SAQA will approve it next month and that we can get it out to the market. And it's very important when you employ a building inspector, make sure that he is an ABISA member. Make sure
Mm,
that he has done proper courses. There is a course by it's an American course called Internachi.
mm,
It means nothing in the South African market because to become an Internachi inspector, you answer multiple choice questions online
mm,
and you just go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no until you get 80%. They ask questions about shingles and wooden houses and things
mm,
which we don't have in South Africa. So that means that those inspectors are not really qualified to do proper inspections for you. And
okay.
if an inspector has not got any construction knowledge and he doesn't know his national building regulations, how can he do a proper snag list inspection for you? That is a big issue. When I do
Mm,
snag list inspections, I find so many items that are not done according to national building regulations. And
mm,
by law, the town council's building inspectors shouldn't have issued the occupancy certificates, but they do. They also don't know all their building regulations, and it causes problems and hassles for the homeowners down
mm,
the line. I always say to homeowners when you buy a new property and it hasn't been done according to regulations, just remember that you are going to start doing maintenance on that house a lot sooner than you
mm,
would have thought. If they scratch the roof sheets that they put on and you didn't get a 10-year after installation guarantee on the roof sheets, that means that your roof sheets are not going to last 10 years. They're going to start rusting long before the time, and you're going to have to paint them long before the time, and a whole host of other things.
Okay, so one question came up. So I know somebody out there is thinking, I'm just gonna hire my uncle. He's gonna do the whole checking up, checking out of the property and whatnot. Or there's somebody who has been recommended by a friend of a friend and whatnot. What exactly should investors look for to see that okay, definitely this person is worth it? Is there a certificate of some sort, a number? Like what is
Yes,
it should they look for?
the inspectors should have done, at the moment, we only have the Sahita course,
Mhm,
but very soon there will be the building inspector course that will be approved by SAQA. And then they must be an ABISA member and
mm,
look at their track record. How long have they been in business? And ask them for a sample report. And you must
mm,
also remember that if, for instance, let me give you an example. I quoted to do a snag list for a client. I quoted him 6,800 Rand, and another inspector quoted 2,500 Rand. The client went with a 2,500 Rand inspection and got a 5-page report. Then his house got flooded. He called me in to do an inspection. My report was 120 pages, and I found 15 things in the house that was not done according to national building regulations or the approved plans, and was not done according to the stormwater handling that was approved by council for the building site. This other inspector never even asked for the approved building plans, for the site development plan, for the specifications and things like that. So if somebody quotes you 2,500 Rand and I'm quoting you 6,800, you must know that you're going to get a totally different quality of report. And
mm.
ask people for a sample report and compare the reports. See if they know what they are talking about.
That's very important. I think this is an emphasis to those people who like to cut corners. I know us, we don't like paying sometimes. We want, we want quick things, cheap things, and whatnot, and just hope that it's actually something that is not going to come and bite us somewhere in the future. So I need to
Okay,
emphasize
Swelini,
this.
I
Yes.
yeah, so I want to tell you about not wanting to pay.
Yes.
I had a client who was renting an industrial factory, and the his landlord wanted to sell it, and they were having roof leaks and problems and things. And he said to me, "Please come and do a maintenance inspection for me." It was 15,000 square meters under roof. It took me 5 days of inspections. I gave the client 15 reports, each about 40 pages long. He went back to the seller and said, "Okay, you have to replace the gutters and the downpipes on the property." That was an amount of 1.75 million rand. He agreed, or he negotiated, that the seller would waterproof all of the flat roofs again, and that he would replace all of the asbestos roofs. My client saved 3.5 million rand because of my inspection. The seller repaired and replaced everything, and my client didn't have to do all of that. So just think about it. I've got other property investors. One investor bought a property in a townhouse complex, and there was severe damp inside the house, and they didn't know what it was. They wanted to know, where does the damp come from? What is happening? I went and did an inspection, and it was the body corporate's problem. It wasn't my client's problem. So he ended up getting the property for a lower value because the property looked bad because of the maintenance not having been done by the body corporate. But the body corporate had to pay for the repairs. So, in that instance, I can always save you money. And while we are on maintenance, I am passionate about maintenance. And I walk into a property and I think, if only the seller did these three things that would have maybe cost him 2,000 Rand, he would have been able to charge more for this property. But because he hasn't done maintenance, it is my client is now buying it for a steal. So, because of that, I'm busy recording a maintenance program. It's going to be an online program, more than 30 hours of recording, covering almost 42 items that will show you how to go and look at your gutters, tell you what to look out for and what maintenance to do when, and also what products to use and what products not to use. So I'm very excited about that because I believe that if you do proper maintenance, it is not expensive and your asset won't deteriorate. You will be able to sell your house for a better price one day. And the other thing that people only realize when they put an insurance claim in the insurance fine print, it says, if you do not do maintenance, we will not consider your claim. So if you have a roof leak and it's due to your gutters and valleys being blocked and water cannot run away, but it pushes in under the tiles or the sheets, insurance is not going to pay. They're going to say, you should have done maintenance. We're not paying. So maintenance is very important and it's not expensive.
Okay, so I have another question. Do you do? I think I know, of course, but I think this is a question I've heard from other people. People get this thing that you're supposed to hire a property inspector if you're buying a property that has been there for years. They think for new properties, you can skip that, they skip that part and just go straight to buying the property and whatnot. So, what is your take on that part?
Okay, so unfortunately, today's builders are not using skilled artisans on site. The days my father started his construction company in 1973, all the subcontractors had been to artisan school. The bricklayers, the plasterers, the tilers, all of them were taught the correct way. Nowadays, it's not happening. And then your site supervisors are not skilled either. So you end up with an inferior product with things being done wrong. And as I said, you end up having to do maintenance a lot sooner. I would much rather prefer an older building because you might have to replace the kitchens, replace the bathrooms, and do other maintenance items. But the buildings are more sturdy, and the older buildings are normally built a lot better. Let me tell you a story about a development in Kyalami where they had 29 sectional title units and then 5 blocks of flats.
Mhm.
I started doing in snag list inspections for a few of the homeowners, and then the body corporate asked me to do an inspection. Now, the worst thing I found there was the geysers were not installed correctly. You know, you've got a geyser tray, and then you've got the outlet from the geyser tray, which slopes down to the outside of the building. Now, this plumber created a P trap, you know, like you get under your zinc. So the pipes went down like this, then it went up 45 degrees, and then it went out. So I failed to understand how water from your drip tray, which is gravity fed, must first of all go down and up and then 45
Mm.
degrees and then out. It's impossible. And if they didn't get me to do an inspection, they would not have known that that is a problem. So
Mm.
luckily they got the contractor to replace or to fix all the geyser installations, and it cost the developer an arm and a leg to fix things like that. So
Mm.
very important. If you buy a new place, let me do a professional snag list for you, because the builders, the problem is the site, the project managers, either they don't know how the geyser should be fitted, or they're too lazy and they don't climb into the roof and they don't go and check what the plumber has done. The plumber says, I've installed the geyser, here's a plumbing certificate, and off he goes. And you sit with a problem.
Yeah, ne. Okay, so I have to watch the time because we want to make sure that we don't take a whole hour. I know people have to go somewhere, but I have one very very important question. Us as the Zare trading community, we have partnered, of course, with different experts from different areas. I'm sure the investors who are looking at this or watching this, they are wondering, where are you based? Which areas do you serve?
Okay, so I'm based in Gauteng, but I serve the whole country. I have property developers who will not use anybody else, and I fly down to Cape Town, Durban. I'm going to Bloemfontein again in 2 weeks' time. I Northwest, Clarkstorp, Ellis Russ. I was in Ellis Russ 2 weeks ago. Just before that, I was in Standerton. So if a car or an aeroplane goes there, I'm there.
Perfect. Okay, so I needed to emphasize another thing. There is a course coming through, you guys. The course,
Yes,
luckily, yes, I think the course is also gonna be part of this Ray training list of amazing courses by these amazing experts we have. We're gonna be notifying you guys as soon as that course is available. So stay tuned. Okay,
that should be next month. So that's a maintenance program which will teach you how to do maintenance.
perfect. Amazing. So, people who want to be able to contact you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm also going to drop the link to Maricia's website just on the comment section. But do you have a specific number where you want people to contact you, or you just want them to go through your website and
They
everything
can
is there?
they can go they can go to my website gautenginspect.co.za, and they will find a form there, a contact form. They can send me an email. My telephone number and email address is there. So gautenginspect.co.za, and they can find me there.
Perfect. Okay, so with that being said, I need to emphasize this once again, everybody. It is important as a property investor, whether you're starting your journey or you're continuing, to make sure that you have a professional power team with you. As I said, every Thursday, once a month, we have a property expert for you. Last month we had attorneys, and this month we are having Marisha. As you can see, everybody is important. Marisha told you guys that do not avoid paying. I know you like avoiding, you like avoid paying. You do not want to pay for property inspectors. You buy properties without having to look at the OTPs properly and putting in the right clauses and everything, and it comes back to bite you a year or two later, or even within a few months. So you need a property inspector, please do talk to her. And I'm telling you, she is amazing. When you go to her socials, I think, Marisha, you are on Facebook. Are you on Instagram?
Yes, I'm on. Yeah, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Perfect.
And they can also go to my YouTube channel. I post videos on ZA training, and you will find the link there to my YouTube channel. Go and subscribe. I have a lot of videos that can teach you a lot.
Perfect. So I'm gonna share, ladies and gentlemen, all those links right below. You go check those videos out. You're gonna see she is amazing at what she does. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I hope our network has been behaving. Apparently, we are in load shedding. Thanks to ESCOM, apparently we are in South
Yes.
Africa. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. And Marisha, thank you so much for being here with me and sharing all this amazing information. I hope to be speaking to you further in relation to that amazing cause of yours. And do you have any other thing that you want to say to everybody before we go?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to helping the property investors save a lot of money.
Perfect. I love that part. Okay. Well, that's it from us. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.